Senator Shirkey offers Senate Resolution 183, a resolution of tribute for the Honorable Ken Horn. Whereas it is with gratitude that we recognize Senator Ken Horn for his work on behalf of the citizens of Michigan. Throughout his tenure, Senator Horn's hard work has benefited his constituents in the 32nd District of Saginaw and Genesee counties. And whereas Senator Horn's personal experiences prior to taking office reflect a deep commitment to public service. Senator Horn owned and operated Horn's Restaurant in Frankenmuth for nearly 15 years, served as a Saginaw County Commissioner for 16 years, and served as Vice President for Donor Services at the Saginaw Community Foundation. Senator Horn holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Concordia University, completed Michigan State University's political leadership program, graduated from the Henry Toll Fellowship Program, and was recently awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws degree from Saginaw Valley State University. His active engagement with many organizations included the White House Conference on Tourism, Habitat for Humanity, and the Council of State Governments Midwest Conference, which he chaired. Furthermore, he was appointed by Governor Engler in 2002 to the Michigan Travel Commission. Most importantly, Senator Horn is a dedicated husband to his wife, Veronica, proud father to his 2 children, Kevin and his wife, Ruth, and Andrea, and devoted grandfather to Liam, Aaliyah, and their angel, Zelly, who is terribly missed. And whereas during his time in the House from 2007 to 2012 and in the Senate since 2015, Senator Horn, a first-generation American, has put service to his constituents above all else as a zealous advocate for the hardworking people of Michigan. He served with distinction as the chair of the Committees on Economic and Small Business Development and Economic Development and International Investment, as well as the Appropriations Subcommittees on Capital Outlay and Labor and Economic Development, MEDC. Additionally, Senator Horn served honorably as the Vice Chair of the Committees on Energy and Technology, Education and Career Readiness, and Transportation, as well as Appropriations Subcommittee on University and Community Colleges. Finally, Senator Horn served as a member of the Senate Committees on Insurance and Banking, Insurance and Energy and Technology, and as a member of the Michigan Legislative Council. His proudest accomplishments in economic development include establishing the Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserve Fund and also advocating for Pure Michigan. Senator Horn has championed career readiness for all Michiganders by sponsoring and supporting the Skilled Trades Training Act, the Occupational Licensing Bill, Good Jobs for Michigan, and the Going Pro Talent Fund. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that we offer this expression of tribute to commend and thank the Honorable Ken Horn for his notable contributions to this legislative body and to our state. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be transmitted to Senator Ken Horn as evidence of our appreciation and best wishes as he leaves this legislative body. The rules have been suspended to allow for the immediate consideration of Senate Resolution 183. There are no amendments pending to its adoption.
Questions on the adoption of Senate Resolution 183. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. The resolution carries, and the President now recognizes Senator Horn.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I've not made many speeches from the stand here. So if I screw up today, I'm blaming my Chief of Staff. She refused to edit this farewell. But last week, as I was driving home from Lansing with a car full of boxes from my office, it occurred to me that I had several of my challenge coins left over, including the one in my pocket. And at the risk of getting gavelled down or getting tased for holding a prop, my coin will help me guide my words today. On the front of the coin is a silhouette of the Capitol Dome. As I look at it, I remain in awe of its beauty and its majesty. Our Capitol building makes a towering statement that within these walls, all the weight of democracy gently rests. Inscribed at the top of the coin is the title Michigan State Senator. What a humbling experience this has been. With a population of nearly 10 million people, very few can experience the honor of walking these hallowed halls carrying this title. Underneath is written my name. I've tried to correct my people that my name is Ken, not Senator. I always prefer that. And there are always those, out of respect for the office, who continue to express that honorific. And out of respect for them, I let it go, content to remember that after this week, I'm just plain old Ken again. The front of the coin, however, would not exist without the back. At the center is my family crest. The things I hold most dear surround it, the three words that circle it: faith, family, and community. So at first I talk about my home community, Frankenmuth. I fell in love with this community where I was welcomed 40 years ago. I met my wife there, I raised my kids there, and in the end, it's my plan to lay in the shade of a catalpa tree behind Blessed Trinity Catholic Church for all eternity. I owe a great deal to the people of Saginaw and Saginaw County and to all my friends in the Great Lakes Bay region. Truly, these are communities to be proud of. I want to thank the people of the 32nd District for entrusting me in this role during this brief moment in Michigan's history. I pray that I've served you well. To my Lansing community, to the community that surrounds us here in Lansing and in the Senate chamber, thank you for your help and support. To Jordan Hankwitz, thank you for your hardworking team. I have a deep and abiding respect for the work that goes on behind the scenes, the work that makes us all proud to receive our guests and visitors into this chamber and into our Senate offices. To Chief Gary Setla and to all of our proud Senate police, there's never been a moment where I felt unsafe in your capable hands. I know of the security concerns that you manage, even when there are no days of session. I will miss our daily conversations. To Jennifer Detloff and your entire team at LSB, including our former House office mate, Shanda Greco, we could never accomplish our work without you, literally. To Secretary O'Brien, the same holds true for the work your team does. Thank you. Thank you to all the friends I've met in the lobby community. The work we've done together over the years will continue to resonate throughout this great state of Michigan. There are a number of the government affairs community that have become very dear friends, such as Gavin Getz, John Kaczynski, Greg Dowis, to name a few. These men have become my drop everything they're doing to come over and help kind of friends. We'll be friends long after this gig ends. My family. Veronica and I will be married for 40 years this next June. We've supported each other in all of our life's pursuits. In 1992, Veronica helped me hand paint campaign signs on a 4x4 plywood board as I began my first years of public service. We've ridden some fairly tall waves together and weathered a horrible storm or two. Through it all, we've simply grown stronger together. So thank you, honey. I received tons of advice from two very special family members, Joanne Crary and Annette Rummel, both of whom are sisters of Veronica, and both of whom are successful in their own right as presidents of their organizations. Thank you for your help and advice, whether it was about economic development, tourism, or simply what to get Veronica for her birthday. My CSG family. After all the time I committed to the Council of State Governments, I do need to mention a few highlights. Director Mike McCabe and his team were so gracious in all the work in partnering with us here in Michigan. You'll meet them at orientations and at our Midwest conferences. They'll provide educational opportunities, including some foreign study trips. My travel partner to Berlin to examine their energy transition was Eric Nesbitt. Eric studied energy issues as deeply as I did. But Eric, I noticed you didn't get that particular chairmanship either. And so I was honored to lead a delegation to Israel during this term, and I was joined by Senator Tice, McBroom, and Senator Geis. We learned so much about the world around us. We learned a little bit more about each other. I discovered the depth of Lana Tice's faith, the deep knowledge of history that Ed McBroom possesses. And from Erica Geis, I learned some new words. The best, in the best sense, that is. I learned that she is multilingual and committed to a lifelong education. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the upcoming 2023 CSG conference in Detroit. Senator Roger Victory will lead us as the Midwest chair, and I hope to see each of the returning members in Detroit next summer. Now, I got to talk about my freshman caucus family. I was one of 8 new GOP senators in my first term. We were a tight-knit group, met often, as often as once a month for supper. There was no agenda. We just liked being with each other. Of the 6 original freshmen remaining in this chapter, let me say thank you for your friendship and your trust. Margaret O'Brien. Madam Secretary, I'd like to submit the following resolution. Whereas Representative O'Brien convinced me to join the so-called legislative weight loss challenge, and whereas I was dutifully preparing carrot sticks and celery sticks and rice cakes for 2 full months over the holiday seasons, and whereas I discovered Rep. O'Brien nonchalantly munching on her own homemade cookies, only to discover that the sole participant out of 110 members of the House of Representatives was me, let it be known that therefore, let it be resolved that with all the great work that we've accomplished together and all the great counsel which Senator and now Secretary O'Brien has offered to me, let it be known that I officially no longer hate Margaret O'Brien. And I'd like those remarks printed in the Journal, Madam Secretary. Dale Zorn, 42 years of public service and still going strong. As I served with Dale in both the House and the Senate, I can't tell you how many times someone's come up to me and asked me about a bill I wrote that I had no clue about. Those would always turn out to be a Zorn bill. People would confuse us all the time. That's why we always had to stand so far apart in group pictures. Dale, with his service business, brings an auto mechanic's problem-solving approach to everything he does. He's the type of person that will watch a ballet and say, why don't they just get taller dancers? Keep lighting up Ida, Dale. Wayne Schmidt. When I think of Wayne Schmidt, I recall Bo Schembechler's immortal locker room words, the team, the team, the team. You'll never find a more loyal teammate in this building than Wayne, even as he fought valiantly for his own priorities. For all the shots he's taken about sitting on the wrong side of the aisle, Wayne receives, in my opinion, the Legislative Good Sport of the Year award. He takes it all with his classic and classy Wayne Schmidt good humor. Wayne is considered quite the haberdasher. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with dashing quickly to committee hearings. My one regret over the years is that in my House farewell speech, I bequeathed my chairmanship of the Lansing Cigar Caucus to my then seatmate, rather than the well-deserving Wayne Schmidt. But since you're the current chair of that caucus, I feel redeemed. I'll miss you, Wayner. Jim Thomas. It has little to do with age. Jim has all the personality and characteristics of the older brother I never had. It's in his nature to keep a protective and watchful eye over his family. Something as simple as helping me save my local Secretary of State office. To the untrained eye, Jim Thomas may appear gruff on the exterior, but don't let that fool you. He's gruff on the inside too, especially when you're asking for money. Jim came to my district once to meet with some community leaders on a very important project. They asked for $35 million. Jim, without hesitating much, asked in return, $20 million? $10 million is an awful lot of money. So what do you really plan on doing with this $5 million? Brother Jim, on the rare occasions that we stayed overnight here together in Lansing, I'll always treasure our time and the honest conversations we've had together. Two other names that aren't with us in this chamber today, except one of them is, are Marty Nolenberg and Peter McGregor. Marty is doing just fine as a restaurateur with and with his other ventures. He reminded us in his farewell speech that there are those who come to Lansing to get big things done, and there are those that come to Lansing to try to be somebody. He always tried to get big things done. Pete is a larger-than-life personality and has joined us and sitting right next to me here. He's a larger-than-life personality both on and off the public stage. You'll always want to invite him to the MPLP alumni dinner, but he's the same person you'd want in the trenches with you when things got heated here in Lansing. Thank you, Pete. Mike Shirkey. I didn't say Mike Shirkey for last because he's our majority leader. This is just the toughest one for me. I was honored to nominate Mike in his bid for his leadership position. Following the unanimous decision to elect Senator Shirkey as our majority leader, the next step for him was to put his vision into action. Mike needed to pick the chair people of each important committee. I was eager to start my final term as the chair of the powerful Energy and Technology Committee. After all, I'd been training for that moment from my very first days in the legislature. Well, Senator Shirkey had other plans for me, economic development. Mike, my chief, Jamie, was so upset on my behalf that she quit saying that your hair was better than mine, which it isn't, by the way. Coming to find out, Mike was right. Economic development is exactly where Michigan needed to be. Without his vision, without his trust, my project, 1MP, would never have taken shape. Mike, you entrusted and empowered your caucus members to chair their respective committees. You supported them in their work, and you asked nothing in return for yourself. Leader Shirkey is a true servant leader, and I mean that also in a biblical sense. It's what I focused on in my nominating speech, and you'll hear more in a moment. My Senate chamber family, Kurt Vanderwall. There's really a tale of two Kurts, the public Kurt and the private Kurt. When the public Kurt puts on his game face as chairman, things get done. People feel empowered, but there's no doubt who's in charge. In private, you get to see the humbler side of Kurt. You see Kurt and Diane. She's such a big part of his life. When she isn't with him, he's talking about her. This speaks to love and loyalty. It's about the faith, the family, and community I mentioned earlier. Kurt sometimes reminds me a little of Vin Diesel, but without all the tattoos. Kurt, I got a funny feeling you're going to need to take a little bit of that attitude into the next term. Kevin Daly, my new senator. We've been through a lot together. Some tough times, buddy. But some good ones, too. But I always appreciate your calm and meaningful approach to this job. Jim Ananick. We may look at issues through different prisms at times, but I appreciate your friendship and your old school ways. Even in this town, people can trust you to close a deal on a handshake. Marshall Bullock. I appreciate your down-to-earth, roll-up-your-sleeves style of work ethic. I have a funny feeling we're not done working together yet. Sylvia Santana. You once invited us into your home, you and Harvey, to study the schools of Detroit. You are a visionary and a great advocate for your community, and at times, shall we say, passionate on the floor of the Senate. I feel like our work isn't done yet either. Curtis Hertel. You're a true and loyal friend to those you serve, and a paradox for the loyal opposition. You liked my committee meetings because they were quick and no nonsense. Only to come to this chamber to drag out session, providing the loftiest oratory in the history of the Senate Journal, and easily breaking all quote of the day records. In the heat of the battle once, I lamented to my friends across the aisle, we're all Michigan senators, for crying out loud. Vote like it. If you want to go to work for this administration, for heaven's sake, send her your resume. You, Curtis, apparently took me seriously. The governor chose well, and I thank you for being a friend. Jeremy Moss, you're a valued and trusted partner at a time when that quality is sometimes rare to find. You'll be taking over a pretty nice Capitol office, though. And no office belongs to neither you or me, but to the people, but they belong to the people. Historically, we'll have shared an office where big ideas are born. I hope you're not surprised, though, on occasion to find a new idea or an old one, an old idea on your desk which deserves reintroduction. Kim Lasada, I'll miss her. We both have a dry sense of humor, making certain that long session days were never boring. Higher education is a better place because she was in her rightful place. Dan Lowers, thank you for your calm and steady hand on the big wheel of this old tractor. I'll treasure our time together, both on and off the field. And now we get to the, kind of the harder part, my work family. I do have to mention a few names first, who are such an integral part of Team Horn. Mo Omatansky, Alina Palumbo, Dr. Corey Savino, and Josh Sefton. We sure counted on your wise counsel and couldn't have gone as far as we did without you. Thank you for all your meticulous attention to detail. From both Jamie and I, we'll miss you. Patrick Yaki, Rich Miller, Matt Blatchford, our communications team, thank you for all your efforts. I know that you played a big role in keeping it all real. Patrick and Rich, you're more than just the camera you stand behind. You're true storytellers. Our Hometown Job series on YouTube made our small towns feel so much bigger. While we'll remain friends, this caucus will surely miss your talents. All right, now we get up in the gallery. Mike Moon. I first met Mike when his campaign slogan caught my eye. It's time to moon Congress. I aced a libertarian test he gave me in a bar one night, which caused him to become a Republican and run my final campaign for office. In 14 years, Mike is the first guy we hired in an all-female office. He survived that test, likely because he looked so good in a kilt. Rachel Murdoch. We took a chance on a young person to be our office manager, and it paid off big time for us. Rachel is not only a quick study, but in an everybody's got an excuse kind of a world, Rachel owned her rare mistakes, and she learned from them. People started noticing. This summer, Rachel went from the premier economic development office in the legislature to the premier economic development organization in Saginaw County, Saginaw Future. My only regret, Rachel, is that your transition happened during a time when we had no session days. You never got a proper farewell tribute, but we love you and we remain so very proud of you. Melanie Ryan. Melanie, on the other hand, got a proper send-off, but I couldn't do a farewell speech, ignoring what she meant to both Jamie and I over my time in both the House and the Senate. We watched our little girl grow up. We watched her get married, have children, complete her degree, and still do so much great work for the people of the 32nd Senate District, and now for the state of Michigan. Thanks, Mel. Maggie Leonard. Maggie came to us earlier this year and filled a big void. She came from Senator Zorn's office. As we move on, Maggie will have gone from Zorn to Horn and back to Zorn again. That has to be some kind of a Lansing record, or very poetic at the very least. Maggie has great talent, and my advice to Dale, hang on tight. Go to an outside printer like I did for Jamie, and design a business card that reads Chief of Staff. You won't regret it. Believe me, Maggie is worthy. A title isn't given to a valued team member based on where they sit in the office. It should be based on their qualifications and their duties. Margie Roeglen. If there was only one word to describe Margie at work, it would have to be incredible. My biggest successes in public office are not the things you heard about in the Senate resolution just moments ago. I'm proudest of the help that we gave to the people back home, those that needed it the most, whether it was a friend in a hospital bed who couldn't get treatment coverage, a lost and lonely veteran at local office hours, or the constituent with a complicated Secretary of State issue. Margie was there. She always knew the right questions to ask and the right person to call. Margie is wise, doggedly persistent, and naturally kind. Most of the time, a problem gets solved. In cases where there is no answer, Margie has an empathetic, professional way of having constituent accept the bad news. There isn't a dishonest bone in her body. Senator-elect Joe Bellino hit the lottery by choosing Margie. And now we do come to the very hardest part. Jamie DeShane. There's a good reason why Jamie is sitting in the back of the chamber and not in her usual spot. And there's a reason I won't be looking to the back of the chamber for a bit. It was 2006, and not unlike this year's election, I walked unexpectedly into a fresh minority. A lot of talented people lost their jobs that cycle. I had 48 resumes on my desk to pour over. I picked out 9 to interview. Veronica, having worked in 2 congressional offices, helped me in the first round. Jamie was the first to walk in. She set a very high bar. It didn't take long for me to realize, however, that Jamie was actually interviewing me. She was already a legend in the Capitol. She could have her pick of the litter, gone to any office. For almost 2 years, stakeholders would come to my office for a meeting and say, "Oh, you're the one that got Jamie." Jamie is a true chief of staff in every way, including building our office team. And with all due respect to each of my colleagues, if you ask outside the walls of this building, Jamie built by far the best team in Lansing. To her credit, Jamie would always give me the last word in hiring, and that word would always have to be yes. She encouraged me never to fall in love with Lansing, to never beat up the institution of which I'm proud of, that I'm part of, and the 24-hour rule. Whenever I wrote an angry letter or editorial, we'd give it a day. Next day, she'd ask how I felt, then say, "We're not sending that, right?" While Jamie was responsible for the everyday operations of the office, she would also take the lead on my biggest committees, immersing herself in the details. When stakeholders couldn't get a hold of me quickly, they knew that Jamie was there. I would let them know very directly, no matter the issue, Jamie knows as much about it as I do. Long ago, I adopted the Clint Eastwood line from Dirty Harry, "A man's got to know his limitations." At my age, I certainly know mine. Here in Lansing, that's where Jamie comes in. I solve problems and I connect people. I don't have the solution to every darn problem, but I'll bet you a dime to a nickel I know somebody who does. I connect the two things to solve the problem, and Jamie makes sure that the problem stays solved. The office moves on to the next issue. I asked several people in and outside of the office to give me one word to describe Jamie. The most common response was that it was cruel to ask for just one word. So we found out who the rule followers, the rule benders, and the rule breakers were. Some of the words were multiple. Some of the words were hyphenated. Some gave me multiple words. But here's the ever-growing list: stalwart, dynamic, exceptional, loyal, no nonsense, precise, dependable, perfectionist, mentor, passionate, empowering, inspiring, team player, thoughtful, dedicated, wholehearted, and miracle worker. And to the chagrin of one arrogant out-of-state lobbyist, I'll add one more: fierce. I can't remember what the issue was, but it was in a meeting. I was in a meeting, and Jamie was just outside the door screening the visitor when he said, "You tell your boss to put his big pants on, do his job, and support this bill." I know the hair was going up on the back of her neck when she said, "Excuse me." She proceeded to give him quite an earful, escorted him to the door, and we never saw him again. Jamie is retiring after 33 years in the Capitol. Let this serve as her farewell tribute as well. And let it be known that Jamie is not only the sum of all of the words that was used to describe her. Outside of my home, Jamie has grown to be my best friend and personal confidant. She is a partner in the office, not a staffer. When I lost my little Zelly, Jamie was the first person standing at my front door with a couple of bags of groceries, knowing we couldn't face the public. I don't know what each of us is going to do post-legislature, Jamie, but whatever you decide, I hope you'll pick me again. I'll miss you the most. Now I'll talk about my faith. And this brings me back to my challenge coin and back to Mike Shirkey. Some of you are present in this chamber as I read a tribute I wrote to my 2-year-old Zelly 5 years ago. I took only 3 phone calls a day after she died. One of them was Mike. I couldn't talk, but I didn't have to. He said all the words that needed to be said and prayed all the prayers that needed to be prayed. When I was ready, he gathered our freshman caucus, bringing them to my office to welcome me back to work. Together, they escorted me to the floor of the Senate, where I was greeted by my friends Jim Ananick, Curtis Hertel, and Mo Hood. Each of them walked up separately, gave me the biggest of bear hugs, not saying a word. They didn't have to. Sometimes words aren't necessary. In my book, Letters to Heaven, I chronicled my grief and my faith journey, how it changed me as a person and as a legislator. And you've heard me say at the beginning of each invocation that heaven is real. It's really real. I feel that we're all connected to heaven by our spiritual umbilical cord. And if we're all connected to heaven, then we're all connected to each other. I'm truly convinced that God sends forth his people to act as angels for each other when we need each other the most. I'm grateful that God put all of you, my colleagues, into my life's path. Each of you, in your own way, have made my journey bearable. As a senior exiting member, I know I've taken great liberties with your time. So I thank you for indulging me this lengthy farewell. Let me leave you with this parting thought. This magnificent building represents an ideal that has withstood the test of time, like a majestic Michigan forest filled with hardwoods and pines alike. Each of us, we public servants, we're just temporary. We are simply a breeze that occasionally tickles the leaves of the mighty oaks, or a movement that casts about the aromatic scent of the pines. Some members arrive comforting, like a warm summer breeze. Others appear as brisk as the gust of a Michigan winter. Some as strong as a gale storm, while others are a mere whisper in the wind. But no matter how each of us present ourselves in this chamber, we are here only as long as heaven and the people allow us to be. It should remain a humbling thought. God bless you all. God bless Michigan. And in Frankenmuth, we have a saying, Auf Wiedersehen. It means until we meet again, we never say goodbye. But Frankenmuth, leave the lights on for me. It's time for me to come home.